Well, welcome to the Science Zone. I'm glad that you joined me today. Say, do you love science? I love science. Every time we learn more about science, we learn more about our Creator God. You know that Jesus created everything? That's right. Jesus created everything that moves, that you can see and smell and hear and touch. Jesus even created things that are invisible. Most things are invisible. Look at your hands. I can look at my table, look at my shirt, and it's made out of things that are invisible, mostly, which is interesting. And Jesus keeps all that together. Well, hey, would you like to do some science? Well, that's what we're going to do today. And when we do some science lessons, then we're going to try to come up with a spiritual application. And that would be kind of fun because we can do something and then we can put a spiritual application to it. And that's what we're going to do today. Now, I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about bubbles. Bubbles, yes, bubbles. In fact, I've got a text that I want to read you. And the text is from James, and it's James 4, and on starting with 13, James 4:13. And it says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, make a profit, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away." Hey, have you ever seen a vapor? What is a vapor? Well, have you ever been looking up in the sky and you see a cloud? And if you look a long time, you might see that cloud, moving, okay? But you also might see that cloud just disappearing and it just kind of vanishes. That's right, that happens sometimes with clouds. Or you're looking up into the sky and you don't see a cloud, and then you look again and then you can see a cloud starting to form. Well, that's kind of like a vapor of water molecules. But let's see what is kind of like a vapor. Now, the text says that our lives are like a vapor. That means that our life, your life, and my life, we're just living here on this earth for a very brief period of time. But God wants us to live with Him forever. He really does. But this life here on this planet Earth can be very, very short. It can. Well, let's see. What could we make that would be kind of like a vapor? Well, I thought maybe what we could do is we can make some bubbles. Have you ever had fun making bubbles? It's really a lot of fun. But a bubble is, it's not permanent, is it? No, and a bubble will break eventually. So I'm going to show you how we can make some bubbles using some things that you have around the house. First of all, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use some water. I have some water in this container right here. You can kind of see it. And I'm going to mix some water in this little cup right here, in this little bowl. Okay, so we're going to make a mixture of bubble mix. So let's see. So I'm going to put about a half a cup, okay, or actually about 1 cup of water, okay, in this container. Okay, there's my 1 cup of water. All right. The next ingredient that we're going to need is we're going to need some soap. All right, some soap. Now, if you don't use soap, the water bubbles, they'll pop very, very soon. They won't last very long at all. So I'm going to use some soap. I'm just using some dishwashing soap. And so I'm going to pour about, let's see, this is the tablespoon. So I'm going to fill this tablespoon up about 3 or 4 times. Okay, so I'm going to add that to there. All right, so there we go. There's 1 tablespoon. All right, let's get some more soap in here. So the soap actually decreases the surface tension of the water, and therefore the bubble will last a lot longer. And that's what we want. We want bubbles that will last a lot longer. Okay. And I think this is my third one. Okay, that's my third one. And let's go for some more. 3. Okay. And this is 4. Okay. And I'm going to go for 5. Okay, 1 more. We're going to stop at 6, and we're going to try this out. But I think we might need something else as well. Now, sometimes what you can do is you can actually add something else to your bubble mix to make the bubble mix last a lot longer. One of those would be like Caro syrup, okay? That would help, okay? Another thing would be just to add some sugar. This looks like salt, but this is actually sugar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons, okay, of my sugar right to my soap mix, okay? And that will help it not to burst, not to break easily, okay? And so I've got a couple of tablespoons, okay, of my sugar. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need to mix this up, okay? So I'm just going to take my little pen right here, and I'm just going to mix this up. Okay, now we have a mixture, don't we? We have a mixture of dish soap, we have water, and we put in some sugar. Well, like I said, you could use some Caro syrup, and that will help too. And even glycerin will help those bubbles to not break so quickly. All right, so there we go. All right, so there's my bubble mix. Now we're going to try it. Let's try it out. Let's see how good it might really be. So let's see what I got. I've got my little wand. I'm going to put my wand in there. Let's see if I can blow a bubble. Let's check it out. I think I can blow bubbles with this wand. Hey, this is pretty good. I'm going to move the camera up a little bit, okay, so that we can see these a little bit better. Okay, here we go. Let's blow some more bubbles. Well, that one popped pretty well, and I didn't. Let's try some more. Try some more. Wow, that's working pretty good. Hey, that's pretty neat. And we got some more bubbles. Now, one thing that we can do, we can have a lot of fun with bubbles, of course. And I have something here that I have, and this is a little washer, okay, like you pick up in the hardware store. And I'm just going to dip this washer in there, okay. Let's see if I can blow a bubble through the hole in the washer. Hey, I sure can. So you don't really need a wand in order to blow bubbles. Whoop, let's try it again. Let's try it again. Oh, and there goes another bubble. And I've got, actually, I have a smaller one. Look at that little tiny hole. That's a little tiny hole. I'm wondering a little bubble can come out of that. Well, it's trying to. It's trying to, but it popped. Oh, there goes a little tiny bubble. Hey, that's interesting. Now, there's something else that I have around the house. This is a little eye ring. Let's put the eye ring in here. Let's see if we can blow a bubble through that. Oh, yeah. Hey, that's no problem at all. So we can blow bubbles through that. Hey, that works out pretty well. Wow, and that one bounced on my table. Cool. All right. Now, I actually got some wire, and I made this little cube. Okay, you can see that little cube? There's a little cube. I'm gonna dunk this in my soap bubbles right here. Let's see what we can get right here. Can you see what happened? Look at that. Now, there is a bubble, okay, there's a little surface area in the center, and we have a bubble all the way around, and it's sunk in the center. Now, that's pretty cool. And I can blow that apart. That's pretty neat. So you can take a wire or even some string and make your own. Now that's really exciting. Now let's see. Now I also want to do something here. I'm going to pour a little bit of this on my table. So I'm going to make a little bit of mess on the table. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spread this out a little bit. Okay. So there's my bubble mix, and it's on my table. All right. There you go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow some bubbles. Okay. And see if I can get some bubbles to stay on my table. Well, there we go. Hey, look at that. Can you see that bubble? It stayed right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a straw. Okay, this is just a little drinking straw. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put it right through the bubble and blow another bubble inside of that bubble. Let's see if we can do that. Well, it's actually beside it. Oh, look, I've got a bubble inside a bubble. And you can have lots of fun blowing bubbles and try to blow a bubble inside of a bubble. Hey, that's really, really cool. Now, another thing that you might try, first of all, I'm going to get my paper towel and get my hands a little bit drier. Now, sometimes you could try to catch a bubble on your hand. Have you ever tried to catch a bubble on your hand? Well, it's a little bit difficult to catch a bubble on your hand, but I'm going to try to do that, and then I'm going to show you how you can do it almost every time. Okay, so here we go. Here's my bubble mix, okay? And I'm going to try to blow a bubble and catch it on my hand. Try to catch it. Uh-oh, you see it? It popped, didn't it? Let's try another one. And that one popped. Okay, try another one. That one tried to go another one. Let's try this again. Oh, and it popped again. But I'm going to show you how you can actually save a bubble, not for long, because remember, the bubbles are like a vapor, just like our Bible text said. But if you have a nice clean glove, okay, like this one, or even if you have a nice clean sock like you put on your feet, and you can put that on your hand. I'm going to put my glove on my hand. Okay, there we go. And now this is very, very clean, and I might be able to get a soap bubble to stay on the glove, and that would be kind of fun. And then you can actually look at it and examine it very, very closely. Okay, so let's try this. Here we go. Let's blow a bubble, and I'm going to put it. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Do you see that? And I've got a bubble right on my glove, and it's not popping. It's just right there. Isn't that cool? But you know, the bubble wouldn't last on my hand. It wouldn't, it just popped. But now it's lasting a long time on the glove. So try that on your glove or on a nice clean sock and see what it does. But they will all pop. Now, if you can look very, very closely, I'm seeing some colors. I'm seeing colors of the rainbow on the surface of the bubble. That's interesting, isn't it? Now, the reason why we see colors on the surface of the bubble is because that the light is shining through the bubble, but the bubble is breaking up the light into all the colors of the rainbow. Isn't that cool? And we call that a rainbow color. That's interesting. Another thing that you can do with bubbles when you start to make your bubble mix is you can actually add food coloring to it. And that's really kind of cool. But you got to be careful with food coloring because, you know, if you get food coloring on your clothes, it might stain your clothes. And if a bubble goes someplace and pops, then you just might stain that area where it landed and it popped. That's, look at that. And it's still going. Now that is awesome. Isn't that awesome? Oh, that is so cool. Now, let's see what I got. You know, I'm trying to figure, you know, this is interesting. I don't know that I've had one to last this long. I don't know. Oh, and it popped. You see it? It just popped. That's okay because we can make some more. Okay, we can make some more. Now, you know, there's all kinds of different ways that you can do bubbles. And I have a little pan right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some of my homemade bubble solution right inside of this little dish or this little pan. Okay, there we go. Here we go. And you know what? You know what I found? I found this thing right here. Look at that. Look at all the holes in there. I wonder if we could make a lot of different bubbles by blowing through that one. Let's check this out. This might work. Look at all the bubbles that made. Wow, now that's pretty cool. It really, really is. Now, another thing that we can do, I have a little straw. Actually, you know, I bet you we could just blow a bubble or make a bubble by blowing it right through the straw. Check it out. Oh, look at all those little tiny bubbles. That's interesting. Whoop, I think it all popped. Now that is pretty cool. Let me get some more soap bubble mix on my straw. Whoa, that was really interesting. That is really, really cool. Well, you know, I love bubbles. But you know, I've got something else here. You know, you don't have to have all of these fancy wands and stuff to make bubbles. I've got a pair of scissors. And you know what I could do? I could get the bubble mix on my scissors. And the scissors, they have holes you put your hand through. I bet you we can blow bubbles, make bubbles by blowing it through those holes. Let me try it again. Let me get the camera up a little bit higher. Okay, there you go. Let's try it again. Let's check it out. Yep, sure enough, we can blow bubbles doing that way too. Wow, that's pretty neat. That's really, really cool. You know, another thing that I wanted to show you was it's a balloon. Now, we all know what balloons are, right? Now, a balloon has air in it. I'm going to blow the balloon up, and it's going to have air. There we go. And that balloon is kind of like the bubbles that we just made, because inside of the balloon, there's air. Inside of each one of the bubbles that we made from our bubble mix, there's air inside. And that soap is on the outside. And that soap has what we call surface tension. But what happens is the surface tension is decreased when we add soap. And it helps it too if we add some Caro syrup or some glycerin or even just some sugar. You can have a lot of fun with bubbles, you really can. But these bubbles will pop, and balloons pop too, don't they? But you know, I love making bubbles, but it reminds me of that text. Oh, there goes the balloon. You know, it reminds me of that text. You remember that text? That text that I read? Let's read it again, okay? Let's read that part about the vapor. And it says, "Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a place, a city, and spend a year there, or buy and sell and make a profit, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow." We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we know that Jesus will take care of us, don't we? We really do. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. Well, that's exactly what God's telling us here in James. He's telling us that our life here on this planet Earth is very, very short compared to eternity. And Jesus wants you and I to live with him forever and ever in a place that's called heaven. And I'm really looking forward to that. And you know, and I hope you are too. And remember, we can do a lot of very interesting things in science and making bubbles. And I love to make a spiritual application like putting James, that text in James in there. That is really cool. Hey, I've got something else that I want you to look at. I really like bubbles. You know, if it wasn't for surface tension, you know, we just wouldn't have bubbles. We need surface tension. And remember, the soap reduced the surface tension so that that bubble could kind of bulge out, okay, and take its shape. Hey, let's look a little bit closer at surface tension. Now, surface tension is all about this. The molecules of water, they want to stick to each other, okay? So they bond, and so it's called a water bond. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do an experiment with the surface tension of some water. And so what I have here, let me go ahead and move the camera down so that you can see what we've got here, okay? What I've got here is I've got this big pan right here, and I've got water in it, okay? Now, right now, that water has surface tension, and it has a lot of surface tension. In fact, it's just kind of like this piece of rubber right here. I can stretch it, I can stretch it like this. It has a lot of surface tension, and it will stretch. It will stretch. If it didn't have a lot of surface tension, then when I tried to stretch it, it would just break. Okay, so that's kind of give us an idea about what surface tension is. Now, in order for this experiment, we're going to be looking at surface tension. Now, what I've done is I've made some little tiny cardboard boats out of some pieces of cardboard, and you probably have cardboard at home. This was just a piece of cardboard box, and I just cut that piece out, make it shape of like a boat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the water. Okay, I'm going to put it on the surface of the water here, and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm just going to put it down, and it just sits there. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. Okay, and there's surface tension on the water, and that surface tension is pulling on the boat in all directions, so it doesn't go anywhere. So now I'm going to do something different. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that boat out, okay, of the water, and I have another boat exactly the same size. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take and I'm going to put some soap, some liquid soap, right there in this little V right here in the back of the boat. So in my container right here, I've got some liquid detergent, and I'm going to take a little pencil. This is the eraser of my pencil. I'm going to put that eraser into my soap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some soap right into this little V right here. I'm going to put some soap right into that little V of my boat, okay, just like that. And I think maybe what I should do, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to put this boat in here. Remember, that boat doesn't have soap in it, and the surface tension is pulling on it in all different directions. I'm going to put this one down. Let's see if it goes. It should break the surface tension at the back of the boat, which would make the other part of the surface tension pull the boat forward. Let's check it out. How about a countdown? 3, 2, 1. I'm going to put it down. Let's see what happens here. Oh yeah, it's starting to go. It wants to go. It wants to move. And it's moving away, isn't it? It's just moving. You know, making bubbles was a lot of fun, wasn't it? It sure was. I enjoyed it. You know, there's something else that's kind of related. We talked about surface tension. Remember, if you add soap, it breaks the surface tension down a little bit, reduces it so that the bubble can form and we can actually form and make bigger bubbles. Well, hey, how about let's see if we can make a boat to go on the water by trying to get rid of some surface tension. So you can do this at home, and it's really, really easy to do. First of all, I've got some water, and I made a couple little boats. And these boats, I just cut them out of cardboard. And you might have some cardboard, a cardboard box around, you know, just cut a shape like that, okay? And I've got a little place here so that, you know, we could put a motor. But instead of putting a motor right there at the back or the transom of the boat, we're going to put some soap. And the soap is going to break the surface tension of the water. And the boats ought to go right on down the water. Now that should be really cool to watch. So let's see how we can do this. First of all, let's take this little boat right here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lower this down so that you can see what we've got on my table right here. And so here's the shape of my boat right here, and I'm going to be using, I've got a little cup right here, and so I'm going to put some soap, okay? This is just liquid detergent, and I'm going to put some liquid detergent in there. Okay, there you go. All right, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, I tell you what, let's try the boat without the liquid detergent, okay? Let's see what happens. Let's see if it goes on the water. Now the water has surface tension, and the water molecules are just locked together, and we call that the water bond. Water likes to stick to itself. It's kind of like this little plastic sheet right here. If I take this plastic sheet and stretch it, well, it does stretch. It wants to stick to itself. It doesn't break. It just wants to stick to itself, but we can stretch it. That's pretty cool because it has some tension. Now, this little boat right here, we're not going to put any soap right there. It's just we're going to set it on the water. Let's see if we can make that little boat go from one end to the other. So I'm just going to take it right here, and I'm going to drop it in the water, and it doesn't do anything. It's just sitting there. So, well, I think it needs a motor. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this little boat right here. I'm going to take and I'm going to put some of that liquid soap right in this little V shape right here, and that is going to break the surface tension at the back of the boat, and the other surface tension ought to pull the boat forward. Okay, so let's see how that's going to work. So I have a little pencil right here. I'm going to put the eraser inside of that liquid detergent, and I'm going to get some liquid detergent right in that little V right there. Okay, let's make sure we get it in the little V. Okay, in fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to tip the end of the boat right into that liquid detergent. Right, are you ready? Let's see if this boat is going to run. How about it? 3, 2, 1. I'm going to set it down and see what happens. Oh yeah, look at that. Wow. And that boat wants to go forward. And it made that other boat go too. It caused some little wakes to do that. Hey, that's interesting. You know, that's very interesting, because surface tension, there are some animals that Jesus made that need surface tension on the water in order to survive. Now, you've probably seen some of those. In fact, what we do is we call them water striders. Have you ever seen little water striders? And they just walk on the water. They're really fun to watch. But those water striders, they really are beneficial, because you know what they eat? Well, they eat mosquitoes. Now, the mosquito larvae is in the water, and there's a little tube that the larvae can get air from, okay? But the water striders, it can find that mosquito larvae, and it can grab that little tube, and then it can eat it. That's pretty cool. And it actually just bites them, and it sucks all the juices out of the mosquito larvae. But I don't like mosquitoes. And mosquitoes, they can cause disease, can't they? And I hate it. And sometimes it itches, where they bite you. So the water striders, they're very, very important for us, because they help to cut down the amount of mosquitoes that we have. That's very, very important. And the larvae, the water striders are so important. Sometimes the water might disappear in a little area, and so the water striders would die if they couldn't go and find some more water. And so what they do is God has given them a special ability so that when they have a new batch of water striders, then they can have them so that they have wings. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, they can make it so that sometimes their little babies can have wings, so they can fly away and find water, or not. How cool is that? Wow. Hey, let's do something else with surface tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move some of this stuff around a little bit. Okay, let's see what we got right here. Okay, so I'm gonna move this back just a little bit here without spilling it. And I've got another pan of water right here. Let's check this pan of water out. Okay, now what I have here in this other pan of water is I've got some water, and what I've done is I've added some food coloring, okay, to the water so that you could see it a little more easily. All right, and the water strider, it does float on the water, doesn't it? It floats on the water. In fact, have you ever tried to float a dime on the water? I have a dime right here, and I have a paper clip, and I can put the dime on the paper clip, and I can see if it'll float. Let me put it in there, see if the dime will float. Nope, the dime won't float. It just sinks to the bottom. Now that's interesting. The dime is too heavy, and the surface tension can't hold it up. Interesting. But I have another coin right here. This is the coin. It comes from Japan. It's called a yen. It's called a Japanese yen. Now it's very, very light, but it's made out of metal. And let's see if this will float. I'm going to put it in here very, very carefully. Oh, look at that. The Japanese yen floats, and the dime just sank to the bottom. Now that's interesting. So, it's like those water striders. The water striders have to be light. They're not heavy. If they were too heavy, they would just sink down. You you could make some artificial water striders out of some wire, some very, very thin wire. And I have done that. And here's some little thin wire right here that you might be able to find maybe in a little a transformer, or maybe you've just got some wires from maybe a headphone or something like that, or an earphone. And so I've taken some of the wire out of this right here, and I've made some water striders out of it. This is pretty cool. So let's see what I've got. Okay, so what I have 3 strands of that wire. You twist them in the middle, and then I'm going to put it in the water, and let's see if our artificial water strider is going to float. Oh, sure enough, that's pretty cool. And that's made out of wire, but it is what? The surface tension is holding it up, just like the animal water strider. I've got another one right here. Let's check this one out. This one right here is made out of a different type of wire. It's called magnet wire, and it's very, very small magnet wire. Let's see if this one will float also. So I'm going to put it in here very, very carefully. Oh, there. Hey, how about that? I've got 2 water striders that I made out of wire, and you can do the same thing, and that's pretty cool. But hey, let's see if we can break the surface tension. So what I'm going to do, remember, I've got some soap in this little cup right here. I'm going to take the eraser in, and I'm just going to put a couple of drops of soap in the water, and that ought to break the surface tension. Let's see what happens. Oh, there goes one. The other one is down, and we still have our little coin, and the coin is still floating, but pretty soon that coin, it's not going to float any longer either, and it's going to go and it's going to sink down in here. As soon as the surface tension starts to break around that coin, and it is just going to sink down in. Now that's pretty cool. Wow. Well, you know, I'm glad that we have water striders. I'm glad that, you know, Jesus made some insects so that they can take care of some insects that are just pests, like mosquitoes. And mosquitoes cause a lot of deaths every year around the world because they can cause and carry malaria and bad things like that. But you know, Jesus made all of the animals, and every animal has a purpose. And you know, water has a purpose too. If it wasn't for surface tension, we wouldn't have water striders. And some animals really need bubbles, and some animals make bubbles out of water. They carry air down into the water to make nests for their young. Interesting, isn't it? I think so. Some snails will make bubbles, and then it will help to clean out their gills. Wow, that's really interesting. Well, hey, I want you to come back and join me because we've got some more very interesting science experiments to do, and let's see what kind of spiritual applications we can make. So I'll see you in a little bit.